Hello guys, welcome back to the series, and today we gonna go through a few of the main important content on the AKS, and which would be we'll try to construct into five videos. So video 6 will have our we'll be spinning a non-RBAC AKS cluster with VMSS disabled, which means that it's gonna use VM nodes. It would be like virtual machines backing the AKS cluster. So we'll go through a few of the commands in here, and then we will be using most day-to-day used AKS Kubernetes commands. Like we will cover almost many of the commands which would be very useful to work with AKS, like a freelancer, and troubleshooting issues with cluster. It's possibility the AKS cluster may run into issues due to the patch updates or any of the upgrades which would be done by the infra level, or even your agent, OMS agent, which is running. Basically, whole monitoring depends, the issue monitor depends upon the agent, which flushes in log from the nodes. It sits inside the nodes and then it flush logs outside to the issue monitor and to the log analytics. So we'll look into the default monitoring what Azure has to give, and we will be speaking up on the spinning of AKS RBAC cluster. So we will do via CLI, and as of now there's a only CLI method which is available. Like using Cloud Shell, we can provision an RBAC cluster, for which we would be creating a server AD client and the client app, and we would be giving an admin consent, and we will look into whatever the API permissions we would require to give. And then we will be interacting with RBAC enabled cluster and how it would be different from the normal non-RBAC AKS clusters, and understanding few of the key terminologies. So let's go guys. So let's go ahead and let's spin the AKS cluster. So we're gonna spin the AKS cluster in the same way, the manual way, because it's being a non-RBAC cluster. So we have availability of using a UI. So we'll pick up Southern India as usual, and then the Kubernetes version 2, the latest stable 1.16.7 as of now today. And then we will be go with the default DNS naming and other stuff, and we have the resource group created earlier, and we have a subscription. I'll click next, and I'll just disable the VMSS so that it goes goes into a default virtual machines provisioning for our AKS cluster pods. And we will also disable the RBAC, and we will let the AKS take care of the Azure taking care of provisioning the service principal by its own. And then if you want specific, then you can configure, because in many of organization you won't be having a permission as a developer, you won't be having a permission to configure the service principal, okay, because you need to be part of a tenant admin, not exactly tenant admin, but at least a contributor to the tenant, the AD Active Directory. So you can claim it from any of the infra DevOps or the infra team. They will spin up a service principal, and you can mention the necessary API permissions you would require. But as of now, it's just plain vanilla service principal for a non-RBAC. But for RBAC AKS cluster, it needs a lot of permissions, which we will be going through and implementing in the further videos. And then the networking, as usual, we pick up a standard load balancer, because we're going to use even like Nginx on top of it. And the network configuration, I'll keep it as basic. Yes, it's not a private cluster. And routing, I do not for production clusters, yes, this is not prescribed. And then we will pick up our own log analytics workspace, which we have created earlier, and then I've enabled monitoring. Okay, so there's one way of enabling monitoring onto your AKS cluster. If you forget, there's another way which we will go through in our CLI in our AKS commands, how to do that, how to enable, how to disable a log analytics workspace. And then no tags, we'll just review and create. So, and then we just create it. So this was initialized the deployment, and it would try to create MC underscore the resource group for provisioning of your nodes, your load balancer. Basically, it would create an external load balancer, and we will also try to open, since we know the cluster name, we'll just try to uh, keep that MC underscore resource group also to be open so that we can see how the resources are getting provisioned. So I'll type MC underscore, and it is AKS non-RBAC. There's a cluster name, but again before this it would ask the RG everything. So what you can do is you can just the search by your cluster name, because it has a substring in it, so we will get, it has not created yet, so it's not provisioning. So once it comes up, we can see that the resource, the operation completed with terminal provision state. Let's see what is the issue. At least one resource operation failed. Please list deployments, blah blah blah. Code deployment error, conflict message, workspace name is not unique target. Okay, so it says that it do not find the log analytics workspace which we are trying to point out. So we'll go ahead, and what we will give is, let's give some 9999 to our log analytics workspace. This it should pick up automatically, so we'll go with the resource group, and then it asks the client ID. So what we're gonna do is, like, we will go and check if we have any service principals which we have created earlier with the RBAC cluster creation. So we'll go to home, we'll go to Azure Active Directory, because what happens, the service principal, or what you can say as a service account, these would be created in the app registrations of your Azure Active Directory. So this is very old Active Directory which I created when I was working for Mindtree. And then, like, you can see, it says the AKS cluster, this one non-RBAC cluster, it has created this one. So I'll go ahead and I'll take the client ID and I'll pass it in here, and it would have already created a secret by default, so you can go to the secret section. If not, let's go ahead and I'll create never ending password. I'll take it as sp underscore key. So that's what the namespace. I would delete, don't bother. If you're trying to hack, don't bother to hack. I'll delete that once we are done with this. So okay, I'll agree. And this is one way, when you face any deployment errors, you can redeploy this because of the ARM template which is actually sitting behind. It still says errors, so let's see. Let me change the name. Okay, it's not taking up. Okay, let's take it up. So I'll go to the resource group and I'll do provision. I'll go to my resource group. This is my resource group. Okay, AKS non-RBAC. It's not able to. As usual, I'll take, yes, I need to change the size. I don't want to get flooded with a lot of billing, so I'll just go with B2S. I'll select, I'll make the nodes to 2 because we are just going for the demo. This is disabled, this is no, and default configure service principal, use existing. I'll use existing as we have the secret, and we so the key the secrets are, basically you need to keep it safe in either in your key vault and some other places. Otherwise it's only viewable once. If not, you can go ahead and you can delete them. There's no issue. Okay, I'll create a new, since central. So log analytics as of now, it's available in central part of India. AKS log analytics workspace 9999 in order to make it a little bit unique. And then I'll just say next, and it should review and create. It returns a final validation. Let it validate. And let's create. We'll just see whether our deployment goes through or it still throws some error. Since I opened this particular session, or the page validated everything, and I have deployed a little later, so probably the session would have expired and it did fail. So our deployment is underway. I do not ensure like it's gonna be successful, but yes, let's see if it provisions one or the other resources. This is our resource group, and we'll try to, so cluster name is, so it is creating the workspace. So since this time we have given a unique name, so it shouldn't get failed. So AKS non-RBAC is our name, so we'll wait. Meanwhile, so let's go. So I will be keeping all of the scripts, commands, and the Azure Guy 007 AKS repository. So you are welcome to, I'll post this particular link in in my video as well in the comment section. So let's see. As the workspace went well, and this is great. Actually, it creates a solution connections each and every time for you AKS separately, and it looks like this one has went on, and we should be able to see. So it's not yet any resource in here. Yes, so our cluster is back. We have the cluster, and we didn't see the dependent resources as of now. If it is, it would come under smc underscore resource group underscore AKS non-RBAC. So meanwhile, what we're gonna do is let's brush a few of things which we wanted to undergo. And if you go to, otherwise, let's go back in here and let's open this AKS cluster. Okay, so these are the few of the like with AKS our non-RBAC clusters, you'll be seeing this particular dashboard, because a dashboard is in control of something called as a cube system. So as we discussed earlier in how exactly the Kubernetes or AKS has been handled, where by keeping the API server as an interim, and then most of the particular like the Kubernetes like the Azure take care of Azure, or it's sort of managed services, and few of the components are managed by Azure, and it take care of it by Azure. The one of the such example is the master is all in control with Azure, so you do not do anything with the master node. So what we're gonna do is we will look into the various the various options in here. So the activity log is as usual, like it would the Azure provided, and IAM is this particular sections where you want to give specific roles to your particular customer. There's one particular default roles which have been defined for the AKS cluster is these. So you can see, and there's something called as Azure Kubernetes Service Cluster Admin role, Cluster User role, Service Queue Contributor role. So these are very essentials, or it would be very good when you can when you will be spinning up your on RBAC AKS cluster. But yes, still you can use for this particular cluster as well. If you want to give certain access limitations to your users, then yeah, you can use this default Kubernetes roles which are there apart from the log analytics and other particular roles which you can assign to any particular service principal or to any particular user or to the AD group. So if we go ahead, and tags are normal, diagnose and solve problems. So this is one of the pretty good feature which we use in order to know if any underlying upgrades have actually impacted our cluster or not. So you can say this particular thing gives you cluster insights. So you can see one of the observations. So Azure runs a few of the checks, predefined checks on top of it, and it would say whether you have any issues with your cluster or not. So this is says the cluster node issues, and this is like core DNS, whether it's proper or not. Because a core DNS is very important, and it's important in cases where you have Azure Monitor, you have this insights and metrics, and even the log analytics. So insights and metrics won't work if there is any issue with the core DNS which is having issues, because basically your agents which are sitting inside the nodes cannot respond with the logs. Like the health probes cannot respond to your master node stating that whether those particular nodes are alive and what are the CPU and other network characteristics which are given by default. And the cluster certificates are important because so the nodes are so whenever upgrade happens, so sometimes the nodes will not boot up automatically, or the agents inside the nodes may not respond properly to a master API server. So in that cases, like what happens, the OMS agents, or there's something called as tiller. So tiller uses like certificate to respond, or to interact with. So what happens whenever you run a kubectl command, so the kubectl command would give interact with the API server, and the API server would delegate your particular commands or your set of instructions to the nodes. So that happens with the tiller, and tiller uses certificates, because even if you saw it, we gave something as a service principal for rolling out the cluster. So the nodes itself uses some of the system certificates, or some of the service principals to interact with the API server. So these are particular cluster certificates which would be used by the tiller or the agents, or even the nodes to interact with the master API server. So if there is any issues with certificate, then the kubectl command would fail for sure. And the identity and security management, yes, it's there as part of AAD and the roles which we have by default with the AKS. And these are the kubectl command if they're failing these particular things which you need to check. And this is the observations are like something deprecated APIs are there which have been, the usage has been stopped on them, no more support, and there's some issue with Azure Container Registry. So, and you can directly go to the what exactly issue from browsing in here, or even if you have some certain issues, and you copy this report and raise a support ticket to get more understanding with your production clusters. And if you go ahead, we got into node pools. So the node pools, probably it would have spinned up the agent pool, and the agent pool will have node count too, which means that I should be having two particular virtual machines, Linux virtual machines, which will be running with this particular kubectl version and with B2S size. You can always upgrade upgrade the versions basically to any of the latest stable by just clicking here, by just then making it to the highest version and just save it. That's it. You do not have much headache with managing your cluster or updating your cluster. And what happens, like if at all, this is a cluster update which you want to do, and the kubectl version which you want to perform on your cluster, but there are something called as the node update. So the node updates can be done some using something called as curate. So curate is one particular approach which you actually can you can install by using a CLI command. Like you can enable them, and then when you have like in this particular example, if you have two nodes, and out of these two nodes you do not want to trigger a patch update on the both of the nodes at once. So using curate, you can actually trigger an update on only a single instance per upgrade, and that would be really helpful to make your service highly available. And then apart from the curate, like if you go to with the scale, you can scale your nodes by just mentioning in here, and then it would scale up, but it would scale up with your standard sizes which you have defined earlier during the cluster creation. But yes, if you want to have support to various different sizes and various different count of the sizes, then you must go with VMSs, where you will have the node pools, and you can actually so we're using normal nodes, you can't actually add a node pool. So in there you can, in VMSs, you can actually create node pools, and then each of the node pools can be running a different node size agents. So why it would be required, the one particular use case would be, like you may have customers, your own customers, who want to run machine learning algorithms which required very CPU intensive, or we have some Azure provisioning based specific images which actually support them. So those particular images you can create as a part of one another node agent node pool, and then when you provision a service from them, you actually can make something as use of taint intolerations to make your service or that particular customer service to always provision its resource on the ML supported base images, instead of instead of even the taints intoleration will also help you in provisioning the customer resources if you do not want to let these particular customers who are using standard B2S into your ML based images. So you can also do with the taint intolerations, which we will talk ahead in other videos. And we have the basic networking, since we didn't go with any private clusters. And then there's something called as dev spaces concept, which is there, where you can see like we have the Helm 3 support as of now on our clusters. You have something called as remote debugging, which you can do. Like it's sort of logging into your virtual machines, and then remotely remote debugging your code, either using Visual Studio, so that you actually know the exact issues with your production machine, what particular process is causing your particular applications to run slowly or with a degraded performance. And then so there are some of basic documentations around which are useful for the developers. And there is something called as the deployment center, where you can actually say your particular AKS cluster to use particular image from your Azure DevOps or Azure Repos itself, or from the Bitbucket, or from your external Git, or from the GitHub itself. And we have something called as policies, which are yet in preview, which are which need to become, because it would be very important in cases where you have shared cluster among your particular internet customers. And logs are always useful to stop users from deleting it delete it wrongly. And this is particular, once you enable insights, you have this particular metrics. We will discuss on this metrics, insights, everything, and the log workspace, everything. And here is a way to create your new support ticket. So let's go back. Hopefully the cluster is created, and since this particular resource group will have only the cluster and the AKS non-RBAC, we will try to see. I'll go. You can see the MC underscore has been, resource group has been created, and probably we will see more of the resources like my nodes and other things have also been provisioned. So you can see the external load balancer, you have the VNet and everything, and a public IP which is there. And since the nodes we have not enabled VMSs, so it's provisions 2 nodes as we have given by default, and they are part of the availability set. So probably if you want to know more about the availability set, you can so I have a brief good video on it. So you can go to my channel, to the Azure guy, and you can go to my playlist, and then you have something called as Azure from scratch. And this particular the Azure from scratch will give you detail about the exact Azure basics, the availability sets, each and everything. Okay, and then let's go back to our AKS cluster. Yes, my cluster is up, so let's go and uh, I'll end up this video. And in the next video, what we're gonna do is like we're gonna run each of the commands to the daily AKS commands, which would be very useful to work easily with on your daily life. So I'll go ahead and stop the video.